Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Man Mouth. Great show lined up tonight. Introduce my crew very quickly. Mel Farr Jr., regular staple on the show. Welcome back, Mel.
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Doing really
Fantastic.
good. And Steve Ballesteri. And if you get in this club, you better be good. And I got Mel and Steve. This is the exclusive club. Okay, so you got to be really good. Steve, welcome back, pal.
It's always a pleasure, gentlemen, and look forward to talking some more.
And our special guest tonight is Smoking Jeremy Ballreich. And Jeremy joins us on Fire Up Michigan. Glad to have you on for the first time. You made a name for yourself by talking about Matt Patricia. Okay, so you might be falling into nickname territory.
Matt Patricia. Yeah, don't get me started.
No, we probably won't, but you got yourself started last week. Now,
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Matthews-Lewis unable to be with us tonight, has other commitments, but we're looking forward to having Jen on next week and thereafter. But every so often, life gets in the way. Jen, we love you. Don't worry. We all miss you. But as they say in show business, the show goes on. Looking forward to having you back next week and so forth, so you can continue to pair up with this impeccable crew that we call a club that you have to be privileged enough to be a part of, which everybody is. But that said, we'll lead off tonight. Buffalo Bills, 20 consecutive wins by double digits thus far. They ended up beating the Rams 31-10 and then blasted the Titans 41-7 at home. And they get the Dolphins in Miami on Sunday. So, all right, I'm going around the horn, Mel. Give me your thoughts about the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo looks good. They you can see that they're on a mission. Kind of reminds me of my senior year in high school after my junior year concluded. I mean, that next day we were talking about what we were going to do the next year, and it was state championship or bust. And you can see, after that loss that they had last year to Kansas City, it left a bad taste in their mouth. And these guys have come back determined, and Josh Allen is playing out of his mind. The defense is playing lights out. Diggs is playing lights out. I don't see a team. I don't see a team in the AFC that's going to be able to compete with them, because they are truly on a mission. And they look good. You can see they're focused. All they got to do is be able to maintain that throughout the course of the season, throughout the 18 weeks, and I expect to see them in the Super Bowl.
Jeremy?
The Bills did a lot to improve their run defense, which was their weakest part of their defense last year, and they've shown it. 52 yards of the Rams. They held Derrick Henry to 19 yards. The leading rusher for the Titans last night was Hassan Haskins, a rookie, who kind of is a shorter version of Derrick Henry. Strong as a bull. I mean, he got 39 yards. That's not saying much.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to it?
Oh, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl before the season started because they are the most complete roster. They have the best 53-man roster in the league.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, the Bills, like Mel said, that loss in the playoffs last year left a bad taste in their mouth. They pride themselves on that defense, and the defense is excellent once again. The offense looks in mid-season form already. That touchdown pass to Diggs, that deep one, that was a beauty. I mean, that was just a perfect play that they had set up. The only thing that could hold them back now is health. If they start getting guys banged up, that could derail them. But if this team stays healthy right now, I don't see anybody beating them. And, that's kind of lofty praise this early in the season. But, that roster is really good. The only scary moment I thought was when was it Dane Jackson? Is that,
yes.
I haven't written down. Yeah, that was scary, where he was already kind of leaning forward and his own guy just bent his neck backwards. And as soon as that happened, like, your blood runs cold because you're thinking, oh man, this isn't going to end well. But thank God the kid's all right. He's going to be fine. So good for him. But I think the Bills are on a mission. And right now, as long as they stay healthy, I don't see anybody beating them.
All right, let me go to station identification, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to subscribe to the Tribune YouTube channel, you can also go to youtube.com, look us up, South Florida Tribune, hit the subscribe button. That's all there is to it. My thoughts on the Buffalo Bills, they have remind me a little bit of the bad boys a little. When the Pistons got knocked down by the Lakers, they came back and won 2 titles in a row. There's no question that they're hungry. I like Devin Singletary, the former Florida Atlantic University running back's a good running back. Stephon Diggs, we know as well. And, of course, it doesn't hurt that Von Miller's won a couple of Super Bowls. So, yeah, it's pretty hard to go against the Bills right now. And I'm certainly not one of those that's going to even bother to go against them. We'll talk about one of their divisional rivals later in this show. With that said, we're going to stay in Florida. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans is being suspended for 1 game. So I guess the question is, and he'll miss a Green Bay Packer game here in Tampa, how much will it hurt Mel Farr Jr. that Mike Evans will be in there? And, of course, I should make a notation that the Buccaneers added Cole Beasley. And, we're talking Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. I'll get to that point in a moment. But how much will the departure of Mike Evans hurt the Buccaneers, Mel?
Well, they've been struggling offensively. Offensively, they have not looked well. They're nicked up. Leonard Fournette looked great the first game, but he got a little nicked up. So I don't know if they're going to be able to rely on the run game as much as they should, as much as they did in particular in the first game. I think when they have the run game going, it makes it a lot easier for Tom. I think it's going to be tough because, wide receiver wise, they're nicked up. Obviously, you got the suspension. You got Julio. We don't know if he's going to be back. That's been the biggest problem with Julio Jones the last 3 or 4 or 5 years is him being able to stay healthy. He had that great game with a great catch in the first week, and then he hasn't been back. Now all of a sudden he's on the injury list because he's got a knee injury. Godwin, I don't know why they're trying to rush him back. I mean, he got hurt kind of late in the season, if I'm not mistaken, last game of the season in the playoffs, and they're trying to rush him back, saying that he's going, he could potentially be back sometime. I guess within the next 4 weeks. Godwin did come back. I'm sorry, he came back, and I feel they kind of rushed him back. And now he's got the hamstring injury. So that's the thing when you have these injuries, you're coming back. Something else goes wrong. Usually those soft tissue injuries, and those can linger on forever, unfortunately. So it's going to be very difficult for Tom because he doesn't have any guys out there that he's familiar with. Obviously, Antonio Brown's not there anymore.
Right.
So I think it's going to be difficult for him. But that defense travels, and the defense plays well. They can get after Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has the same problem as far as chemistry on that side of the ball and with his receivers. So but I think that defense travels, but they're going to have a tough time because, these guys didn't play in the preseason, not that much, if any at all. So the timing's not there. They've been very sloppy offensively. So it's going to be another tough game for Tom.
You want to make a prediction on this game? Obviously, you've got Rodgers and Brady, 2 quarterbacks that are elite, but missing a lot of players, and some have moved on, and a lot of them are hurt. So this is a much different animal than what we're accustomed to seeing for sure. Why don't you give me a prediction on this one, Mel?
I'm gonna go with the Bucs still. I'm gonna go with the Bucs. I mean, I think Tom Brady and the Bucs will find a way to get it done, especially with that defense. Like I said, that defense is they can get after Aaron Rodgers, and you've seen that. Teams in the last couple of weeks, you've seen that teams have been able to get after Aaron Rodgers, particularly in that first week when I thought they killed him. They can get after him, and they got some guys that can get after the passer over there. So I expect them. I expect Tampa Bay to win this game.
Yeah, I think the X factor in this game is going to be Leonard Fournette and the Buccaneers defense. With that said, Jeremy, give us your take on this.
That interior O-line has to get healthy first and foremost. That is why Tom has struggled to put up big points like we're used to seeing out of him. Without that interior O-line creating holes for that running game that is spectacular when it's there, I hope their left and right guard gets healthy because we know the center's not coming back for the season. That being said, I still expect them to win because that defense is giving up the fewest yards in the NFL right now as a whole. That being said, I think they're going to win maybe 24-17, something like that. It's going to be a low-scoring affair because both of them have good defenses, but you got to watch out for Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary on the Packers defense. They're going to be coming after headhunting for Tom Brady.
Steve?
Yeah, I like Tampa in this game as well. That, like Mel said, that defense is really, really good. I think, they can get after Rodgers, and his receivers have taken a step back from what he's used to. They're still trying to figure it out. I know Brady's receivers are kind of all banged up, like the guy said, but I thought the move to sign Cole Beasley was a really smart one. Brady's always thrived when he's had that
Slot
pure,
receiver.
quick slot guy that can get open and keep the chains moving. He had it with Wes Welker. He had it with Julian Edelman. And I think Cole Beasley is exactly in the same mold as those guys. I don't know if he's going to play this week. He probably won't, but I think he's going to be a big addition to that offense. So I like Tampa in this one. I agree. It's going to be a close, low-scoring game.
You know what? For the sake of being different, I'm going to go Green Bay here, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do it. Number one, I like the running attack. It seemed to be a bit more balanced. You do have Alan Lazard. You have Randall Cobb, and if Sammy Watkins can stay in the field and stay healthy, he's a weapon. I'll be curious to see how the younger receivers ultimately adapt all year. But the Packers have a good defense. You set it out with Rashawn Gary. So, and it's going to be neat to see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers again. They both have accomplished a lot in their careers anyhow. So anytime you have an opportunity to see Tom Brady against Aaron Rodgers, it's a treat. So it'll be interesting, but I do believe it'll be a low-scoring game, maybe 20-17, 21.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying, oh, this might be the last time we see Rodgers and Brady going at it one-on-one. I was like, we'll be saying that in 10 more years,
Yeah,
Brady's 55 or something,
Not if Giselle Bundchen has anything to say about it.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Yeah,
She already left, right?
Well, no, not quite.
She's back. Yeah.
Oh, is she back already? Because I know I heard she moved out with the kids and was in a separate house.
Well,
Yeah, she's back.
yeah. Now, don't hold your breath, Jeremy.
I'm just saying. I just heard. That's all I heard all week.
She probably told Tommy, "This is your last year. Deal with it." And he said, "All right, I'll
Why,
deal with it."
why would she do that now? I mean, she's known for months that he's going to come back. Did she think he was going to change his mind before the start of the season? I mean,
I love-
she's known for months. I mean, 40 days after he retired, he unretired. So I mean, she's known for months.
It was the plan all the way. If you think about it, the day he came back was the day after he'd received his signing bonus.
Yeah. Well,
Coincidence?
he feels as though he's got one more year left. Let him give him one shot, $25 million.
He always said he wanted to play till he was 45, which he is.
Yeah.
Right.
He's been consistent with it. So the
He's
fact
a man of his word.
The fact that he's got a nice, sweet TV deal waiting in the wings probably helped a little bit. Give me one more year, collect my money, take one last go around, and go to TV, and then everybody will be hunky dory. One would think. All right,
but that TV money is a lot easier.
Well, she still makes more money than him.
Well, I believe that.
Facts.
Hey, listen, if you look that good, wouldn't you think she would make pretty good money? I mean, serious? I mean,
have you seen her sister?
She's a very attractive woman. There's no question. But more importantly, she has a lot going for her. I think the one thing that, regardless of the monetary situation between those two, she doesn't want to see him severely get hurt and ultimately see his life compromised. I think that any good wife obviously wants to watch out for her husband. And I think deep down inside, she wants him to enjoy a good family life. But like Mel said, he's going to wanted to play till he's 45, had 1 year left on his contract. So I believe that he will honor it out to the end, and then the Buccaneers will be looking for another signal caller. But, nevertheless, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, good theater for at least another week. All right, Jeremy, we'll let you feel at home with this one. Of course, I know Mel will feel at home, and Steve gets a crack at it. We'll go to Amon-Ra St Brown, join an exclusive club or company with 8 receptions, 8 straight games. Michael Thomas obviously was part of that in 2019, and Antonio Brown 2014. With Pittsburgh, but he was 9 for 116, 2 TDs versus Washington. First player in league history to have 6 straight games with 8 catches and a score. And Dan Campbell calls him a pit bull playing receiver. So it's about time that the Lions run the right end of a statistic instead of the wrong end of a statistic. And he was on ESPN SportsCenter today. They talked to him a little bit. And also, I believe he was named Offensive Player of the Week, if I recall correctly, I believe, in the NFC. I'll have to check on that. But let's face the reality, this kid was not a number one pick. They found him in day 2, I believe. So with that said, Jeremy, you're there. But how excited is everybody about Amon-Ra St Brown in Motown?
Amon-Ra St Brown is a breath of fresh air. And, he was slated to be a day 2 pick in the second round. We got him day 3 in the 4th round.
Right.
And right after him, we picked that guy, Derek Barnes out of Purdue, the linebacker. That being said, I was high on him, and I thought they should have took him instead of Levi Onwuzurike. I look pretty smart right now since Levi Onwuzurike can't stay on the field. That being said, he's shown out to be a top 10 wide receiver in this league, despite being picked in the 4th round, which just goes to show you it doesn't matter where you get picked; it's how you play.
Well, you and I noticed on the Sports Center thing before I turn it over to you, Mel, is that he documented how many receivers were picked ahead of him.
16. And he knows every single one of their names.
Right. Yeah, so if that doesn't tell you that this guy got a chip on his shoulder, then I don't know what the word chip on anybody's shoulder is. So, all these guys were picked. I'll prove you wrong, no doubt. So with that being said, Mel, what do you think of the new big name there, Amon-Ra St Brown?
Well, aside from the fact that he went to that other school out in Southern California, he's a breath of fresh air for the Lions. He's doing a great job. He's very determined. He's extremely hungry. His dad was Mr. Universe. I mean, they lift weights like crazy. Him and his brother, they believe in hitting that iron. So he's tough, and he's doing a great job. And obviously, him and Jared Goff have a very good connection. They were able to, Jared was able to find him. I think he got a couple touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, last week in that ball game. So, they needed somebody like that. I was wondering who was going to be that go-to guy for the Lions. I had really forgot about him, to be honest with you. But they needed that guy. Now, they got him. They got the tight end. Swift is looking good. Offensively, and Jared is playing well. Jared Goff is playing well. If you put him in the right system, don't ask him to do too much. You just ask him to be a game manager. Just ask him to distribute the ball. He can do that. And he's doing that very well. The problem with the Lions is the defense. Now, the defense looked good first half. Second half that came out, it was a whole different defense out there. They tried to give the ball game away. But, I thought they were going to run away with that game. I thought they were going to put a 100 on Washington. But, the Lions look good, and of course, Amon-Ra St Brown look real good.
Steve,
yeah. When I saw, I go back to Hard Knocks, where he was talking about his motivation with all the other wide receivers, but that he's still carrying that torch, man, because after they beat Washington, he was, calling out Dyami Brown, who was taking 30 picks, I think, or 31 picks before him. Right. And that's what he uses for motivation. And I think that's great. Whatever motivates you to be better, as long as it works, I'm all for it. I mean, for years, Brady, we talked about Brady and Rodgers. Brady kept a list of all the quarterbacks that were taken before him when he went 199th. And that fueled him for 20 years. So, as long as it works for this guy and he's producing on the field, I say let him go. I mean, I think that's great. And I like the Lions offense this year. Like Mel was saying, if they can get any kind of defense going, they could be in a heck of a lot of games this year. On that show, we were poking fun at Jen, but I said the Lions have a shot at going 9-8, and I'm going to stick to that.
Well, Jennifer will definitely like hearing that when she reviews this show. I think the bottom line is Dan Campbell calls him, like I mentioned, a pit bull playing receiver. And the reality of the situation is the Lions have had some pretty good receivers in the past. When you look at Calvin Johnson, Herman Moore, just to name a couple, Brett Perriman. But this guy here intrigues me a lot. And then, like you say, anytime a person could turn a negative into a positive, like this guy has done, it's really refreshing. And then you pair DeAndre Swift, this team is pretty good. But I'm with you, Mel. I thought the Lions were going to blow out Washington, but the defense didn't look very sharp. But at least the Lions had a counter punch. And like a lot of these Lions players, they love playing for Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell, to me, is probably the most interesting coach they've had a while, because anytime a guy will do push-ups on the field, can't be half bad in my eyes. But yeah, they took out a tough
I
job.
love it.
When it comes to the offense and defense on my own show, I said this offense is capable of scoring 30, 35 points a game. The key is if the defense can stop people from scoring more than 28.
Right now, the Lions are the highest scoring team in the league.
Offensively, yes, 69 offensive points. There's
Right.
not a team close because everybody else has had defensive touchdowns or special team touchdowns.
I'll be curious to see what they do against Minnesota over the weekend. We're not going to get into that here. We don't.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that, but that's another story.
You'll do it after the fact on Monday, okay? With the intent that you can recap it. How does that sound?
No, I'm going to give my keys to victory in the morning to you.
Well, you can do that too, and I'll make sure they're promoted heavily on social media without a doubt.
Yep.
Nevertheless, next topic of the night, thoughts of the Miami Dolphins wins over New England, and they definitely had an impressive comeback against the Baltimore Ravens. If that wasn't one of the best games of the week, I don't know what was. So, all right, Mel, give us some thoughts about the Dolphins.
That's embarrassing. If I'm a Baltimore Raven, I'm embarrassed. I mean, they were lights out in the first half, and then, here in the second half, they came out and did nothing in the second half. I mean, did absolutely nothing. I mean, they were running crazy. Lamar he had thrown a pass for 75. He ran for 75. Again, looked like they're going to hang a half 100 on somebody. But then they came out in the second half, and I don't know what happened. And that's embarrassing. I mean, you lead by that many points, and you end up losing the ball game.
Marcus Peters got pulled for his limited snaps because of just coming off an injury. Marlon Humphreys went down, so you got two rookie corners stepping in. I understand next man up, but you also got a rookie safety. Then Marcus Williams came up with cramps and left the game. So you got four rookies out there.
I don't care. Are they getting a check?
They got a check, but they didn't deserve it.
They can all get a check. I mean, they're professionals, so they should, conduct themselves as professionals. Run the ball, keep the ball out of their hands. I mean, I couldn't believe that. I mean, and then if they're rookies, coach them up. That's what the coach is there for. Get these guys coached up so next man up, they're ready to play. If there's a problem, protect them. Play 2 deep, 3 deep, whatever you do. But you don't let Tyreek run by you.
And that's the biggest drawback. I got something for you in a second here.
The safety is supposed to be deeper than the deepest. That goes back to Pop Warner. You get deeper than the deepest. You can't let Tyreek run by you like that. And that's what killed him. You get a couple of those. You get a couple of those thrown at you. Those are they kill you. And it's embarrassing. I mean, it's an indictment on John Harbaugh to allow that to happen. The players, the coaches, the organization. When you get up like that, you should not lose ball games. And we saw that quite a bit this past week in the NFL, where teams got up, and next thing you know, it's a ball game. The Arizona game, I just knew Cliff Kingsbury was getting fired on Monday. I just knew it. I saw the score at halftime. Oh, he's getting fired. These guys stopped listening to him. Next thing you know, these guys in the ball game. I mean,
technically, he should have been fired last year, even though they made the playoffs. They backdoored into the playoffs.
I was surprised they let him come back after halftime. And next thing you know, man, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that must have been one heck of a halftime speech. I don't know what he said to him, but that must have been the best speech since Newt Rockney.
Well, I'll tell you what I can tell you. Okay, now that I get the transcript, Steve knows I tag him. And Jeremy, I'm starting to tag you, and I'm expecting you to read a lot of them too. So that'll bolster what you do. But Mike McDaniels is kind of glad that his team did have a little adversity so they can bounce back. You have a little adversity. He's a much different animal.
I can't take him seriously. He looks like a little kid. I can't take him.
Well, maybe not, but he has a head coaching job, so you have to take him a little seriously.
Well, that's another whole other issue. I don't even want to get into that one.
Right. No, I hear you. But the reality is, he says, it didn't hurt that for this team had a little adversity. Doesn't hurt when you got Jalen Waddle, and it doesn't hurt.
Who really says that to their team? Come on now.
This guy.
I can't even see this guy motivating me. I can't see him. I just can't. He looks like a kid. I can't take him seriously. He looks like Michael J. Fox.
Hey, listen, I agree with you. He looks like a kid. I'm not
It's like Michael J. Fox. I mean, I can't take him seriously.
Okay,
Family Matters with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it's like,
You can't take the guy seriously.
So let me ask you, a question,
I go back to those,
I mean, you're looking at. I mean, you're normally looking at big, strong men. I mean, the guy's shoulders are like this wide. I mean, come on, man. I can't take the guy seriously.
All right, but let me ask you a question. Now, you got a lot of young head coaches in their 30s nowadays. How many of them?
But they got broad shoulders, though. Okay?
Yeah.
They look like men.
It's like
Matt
I go
LaFleur?
back to those old Bears teams, with Abe Gibron. Can you see this guy going in there trying to fire up those Dick
I
Buckets?
can't take the guy seriously. He must be the greatest X's and O guy. And then, like, again, that's a whole other issue that I really don't want to get into. I mean, he came out of nowhere. I'm gonna just leave it there. I don't, because we aren't talking about that today. We'll
Let's not go
delve
there.
into that some other time.
Okay, the only thing I'm going to say about the whole thing, and I do read the transcript. You don't have to say nothing. I want nobody to say nothing if they don't, but I do read this because I have to decide what goes on Twitter, so people will go ahead and want to read this stuff. So I have to read it because I'm a creature of habit. You guys do whatever you want. I get it, but I have to do it. But nevertheless, yeah, I agree. He definitely looks like something you'd find in the freezer called one of those popsicles. Is what he looks like if you have to identify him there. But this popsicle better have a little flavor. As long as these guys are performing, it doesn't matter whether he looks like a kid or a popsicle. But the reality is you have Tyreek Hill on that roster, Jalen Waddle, and Tua is in a make or break year. Let's face it, he was brought in here to get Tua straightened around. No, I'm not jumping on the Dolphins bandwagon because in a moment we are going to talk about the Dolphins and the Bills, okay? Regardless of whether the coach looks like a kid or he doesn't have nothing to do with it. But the reality of the situation to me is that was a pretty impressive comeback when it looked like they came out from the dead to win it. And I live in the area. I certainly can understand the enthusiasm, but nobody in this area is really get too excited since they haven't made it to the playoffs that often the last 10, 20 years. So we'll go from there. So Steve, we'll go to you, Steve, okay? Because we know that the Dolphins are the Patriots' arch rival. Give us your take on that comeback against.
Oh, it was, I mean, if you're a Dolphin fan, coach, whatever, I mean, you're fired up because they were pretty much roadkill at the end of the first half. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing Mel did. Baltimore's going to put 50 on them, and it's going to get ugly. And then, they kept scoring, and then they scored again. And then, like Jeremy said, they started losing all their veterans in the secondary, and that's when they started having communication breakdowns. Right. Because that second Tyreek Hill touchdown pass, that long one down the left sideline, the cornerback stopped.
Yeah, he ran right by him.
Right, he ran by him and he stopped.
And the safety help wasn't over the top either.
No, there was nobody there. There was nothing but green. And I'm like, oh, they're going to lose this game. When I saw that, I was like, they're going to lose this game because those kids are rattled now and they're screwing up by the numbers. And that frequently happens with rookies. You can cover up one guy, sometimes two in a secondary. When you got four rookies back there, nobody's the veteran voice back there to calm everyone down. So, but again, I also agree with Mel. Baltimore should have done more to run the ball in the second half.
Take the clock away from them.
I mean, especially when you're way up ahead, just run the ball down their throat, kill the clock, and then go out with a big win. And
because what you don't want to do as Baltimore is get into a position where you have to throw the ball because that's not his strength.
Yeah, I mean, if he's running well, and then he breaks out of containment, then the defense is in no man's land because your linebackers and safeties, they're stuck in the middle because they know how dangerous he is as a runner. If they come up too close, then he's just going to throw the ball over their head, and they're going to get a big chunk play. That's when they're at their best, when they're running that football. I mean, if they're not running the ball and you forcing him to throw, that takes away, I think, that their biggest strength. So,
yeah, I don't think that Baltimore wants to get into too many shootouts if they can avoid it.
No, I mean,
Lamar's not that guy.
If you had the game plan they had in the first half, I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Right.
You know, I think it was 28-7 at halftime.
Right.
So, and they were running the ball down their throat because Lamar had, was it a 79 or 80-yard touchdown run? And that looked like it was lights out at that point.
Well, Mel, you're running back. Obviously, you know the value of a running game more than anybody out here. And there's, in my opinion, the Ravens can throw the ball and they have a lot of capable receivers. But you're right, Mel. You just need to be running the football to kill clock. And that's exactly what I think you've been pretty much saying the whole time, Mel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes so much pressure off of a guy like Lamar Jackson, especially. And then he, you know, obviously he's a great runner as well. But, you know, you don't want to put him in too many of those situations where he has to run the football. But you look at the teams. I mean, unless you have a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers, somebody that can really shoulder that burden or shoulder that load, carry that baggage, you don't want to put your quarterback in that position. Most of the quarterbacks in the NFL cannot handle that. You know, Josh Allen probably can. Your Mahomes.
The best six at doing it. You named three already. You got Mahomes, you got Stafford, you got Aaron Rodgers, you've got Tom Brady. But in the clutch, at the end of games, he shoulders the burden and gets them there. He's got 41. He's got the most in his amount of time there.
Well, yeah, but the reason why they have to have comebacks is he's throwing pick sixes. That's why.
Well, the reality of the situation is a great quarterback is a great surgeon, okay? As long as you're able to thread the needle all the time and you're able to pick apart a defense, that's really what it comes down to anyhow. You know, you don't want to give your quarterback any extra hits if you can completely hold out because one big hit, you know, we all know where that would go. So, but the great quarterbacks to me are surgeons that can pick apart, have good releases, get the ball out quickly.
Distribute the ball, right. Get the ball in the right guy's hands at the right time. And, you know, and take advantage of what the defense gives you. I mean, you look at games. I mean, you guys look at it too. And you look at you say, man, you'll see, like I was watching the Philadelphia game, and you'll see, you know, although he played a great game, Jalen Hurts played a great game, but you know there's certain situations where he's eating the ball, you know, where he might take a sack or he might take off and run. You know that even though they drop everybody back, they only rush 4 and drop 7. And there was 5 receivers on the route, or even if there was 4 receivers on the route, you know the better quarterbacks, you know, the upper echelon quarterbacks would have found a receiver quickly and got the ball out of their hands. They would have known pre-snap, walking up to the line of scrimmage, exactly where they're going with the football based on what they see. The younger quarterbacks, you know, they'll look out there. The first one's not there, they eat it. You know, they either take a sack, hold on to it too long, take a sack, or they start bailing. They take off running. You know, and rely on their athletic ability. Now, again, you know, he had a great game, but there were some plays there that he missed. Announcers will say, oh, nobody's open. Open is relevant in the NFL. Open is not – guys don't – very seldom do guys run wide open. A lot of times guys are thrown open, or they put the ball – the ball is put in a position where only the receiver can make a play on it. You know, you got to give the guy an opportunity. He's getting paid too. He goes up there on Monday and he gets a check. Let him make a play.
Well, the key is
paid to do
yards after the catch. I don't care if it comes from the wide receiver, the running back, the tight end, yards after the catch. If a 2-yard pass leads you to a lot of yards, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. Because nowadays, again, one of the best all-purpose backs I've ever seen was James Wilder of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, my God, he's phenomenal. And
you're such a homer.
What's that?
You're such a homer.
No, I'm not. I live in South Florida. I graduated in Tampa. Doesn't mean I'm a homer. But no, he was a heck of a.
I like James Wilder too, but come on now. One of the best all-purpose backs.
Hold on. Just because you're the running back of this group doesn't mean I don't throw a darn good all-purpose back when I see one. No, I'm not a homer of Tampa. I've lived there 2 years and have a lot of connections there. I make no bones about it.
Well, I mean, we've been on. You brought up the guy from Florida Atlantic or whatever. You know, this is the second week in a row you brought him up. Somehow or another, he always gets in the conversation. Now today you bring it up, James.
Well, you know, let me tell you something. If it's relevant to the topic, I will become a homer because it's obviously here in my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Kevin, we're forgetting one key thing in reaction to this game between the Ravens and Miami. Who did they just sign today? Jean-Pierre Paul. to replace their injured D lineman that went down, which is when the pressure quit because all they had to do was double team Jason Owe.
Good. So now I'm a homer there. No, it's him on him this time. I'm training him the right way. But yeah, I will always make a Devin Singletary reference. And yeah, James Wilder's the first time I brought him up, but he was a heck of an all-purpose running back.
He backed up Barry. And he's a nice guy too.
Yeah, all right, so I'm a homer. Guy. You know what? I'm a homer.
And he backed up Barry.
You know why I'm a homer here, Bill? Because number one, you're obviously from the Metro Detroit area, so obviously there's a connection there. Jeremy is, of course. Steve is a different kind of.
I liked him. I liked him when he was with the Bucks, man. You know, with those creamsicle uniforms. I like that.
Yeah, I know.
He ran. One thing I can tell you about him, he ran hard. I can assure you that he
was a good wide receiver too. But yeah, you're right. I guess, Mel, I have to sit here and say I am a homer to a certain extent. I got two people on this show, obviously, that have major Michigan connections. Okay, and of course, Steve is a new homer in the Florida area. Yeah. Okay, so that's a different story. But Devin Singletary, it doesn't matter. I'll think of somebody next week to talk about. Just now that you're in my head about the homer situation. So with that said, Mr. Homer, Mr. Farr, okay, give me a prediction on the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills game.
Oh man, come on now! I just said that I believe that the Bills are really trying to run the table. I truly believe that, and they're playing like a team that's capable of running the table. I don't see a letdown in them, to be honest with you. I mean, this is one of those games that you might look at and say, "Oh, it could possibly have a little letdown." I don't see a letdown in them. I mean, Tua's going to have a long day because
is it in a dome? Is it in a dome? Because the only really truly super bad game Josh Allen has had was when he played against Drew Brees.
Well, somewhat. Hold on, Jeremy. Let Mel make his prediction. Okay.
I don't know where they're playing it because really the weather's not going to be
affected. Joe Robbie / Hard Rock Stadium. It's not totally enclosed, but a lot of the fans are there because
it could be a little hot. It could be a little warm, but I don't see. I think the Bills are they're going to run away with it. They're going to run away with it. I don't see him putting a half 100 on them, but they're going to score 30, 35 points on them. I see 30, 35 to like 14.
Fair enough. Okay, Jeremy, now is your opportunity to give me a prediction on this one.
42-7.
Ooh.
Well, that's a pretty nasty whooping.
That's a curb stomper there.
What?
All right, saying. You know the Dolphins as well as you know your home team. Give me your thought.
Well, I mean, I'm like I said earlier, I'm very impressed with the Bills. I think the Dolphins showed up really well in the second half last Sunday. I think Buffalo's still head and shoulders above everyone in the AFC. I got 31-14.
Yeah, and I could actually see Buffalo winning 45-21 is what I can do. So that's what I can see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to score that many, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. Very interesting.
What happened to Smoking Jeremy B?
He said he'll be right back.
He'll be right back. That's okay. It doesn't matter. We're going to actually talk about Cleveland and Pittsburgh right now, the game that's going on right now. So, Mel, what are your thoughts about tonight's football game?
Well, I'm watching it right now. It looks like Cleveland's getting ready to score. Yeah, they just scored. So 7-0. I'm pulling for the Steelers, but they haven't looked very good offensively. They have not looked good. Obviously, they lost J.J. Watt. That's a big loss on the defensive side of the ball. He came out, with a couple sacks in their first game. Offensively, they just have not looked very good. Mitch Trubisky, he is who we thought he was. He's not going to be anything other than who we thought he was. He's just not a very good quarterback. He can't. I mean, if he was good, he'd still be in Chicago. If he was good. But he's been to a couple teams since then. Well, this is obviously his second team since then. It was in Buffalo, and now here he is down here. I believe it was Buffalo. Yeah, he was backing up there in Buffalo, and he's not a good distributor of the football. The Steelers got the running game. They want to run the football. That's what they want to do. They want to get back to the roots. They want to play tough defense. They're playing good defense, getting turnovers. They're doing a great job there, getting sacks, getting after the quarterback. But they just don't have the guy to distribute the football. And they're going to have to make a decision there. You might have to give the young guy a chance and let the quarterback they drafted in the first round out of Pitt, put him in there. I'd much rather go down with that guy than going down with – I know what's going to happen with Trubisky. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. And he has not – I've never been high on Mitch Trubisky. He was overdrafted. when he came out, to be honest with you, and a lot has been put on him because of his draft status. And, here he is in Pittsburgh, and they're asking him to do things that he's just unfortunately not capable of doing. He is a backup quarterback, at best, is what he is.
By the way, we want to thank Joshua Burstein for joining the show tonight. He's saying some nice, pleasant things in the chat room. Thank you very much, Joshua. Hope you and your wife are doing well. I know that they just became parents for the first time, so congratulations, Joshua.
Congratulations.
All right. With that said, Smoking, let's start up tonight's football game between the Browns and the Steelers.
I don't know who's going to screw up first, and I don't know who's going to screw up last, but the last one with the ball will win the game. I can't even give a score prediction because both teams are looking that bad. You got Jacoby Brissett, who I like even less than Mitch Trubisky, and that's saying a lot.
I'm not asking for a score prediction on this one, so it doesn't make any difference. The reality of the situation, had Deshaun Watson not been suspended, he would have been on this particular broadcast, not Jacoby Brissett. We do know that Jacoby Brissett is not doing a bad job under tough circumstances.
He's a backup,
Right.
Yeah.
He's a backup in the NFL for a reason.
That's what he
Right.
is. He's a backup. He's 2-3 games max, 4 maybe. That's all you want him in there.
That being said,
season, you're in trouble.
That being said, I disagree with Mel on one thing. That O-line is almost as atrocious as the O-line we faced last week. So I would not put a guy that I drafted in the first round behind that O-line and let him get killed.
Right. Well, that's a good point, Jeremy. That's one of the reasons I'd like to see Trubisky in there for the time being. So not only does Pickett not get killed,
Good quarterback play can make offensive line look better.
Yes.
Well, go ahead, Steve. Give me your take on this game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Cleveland always finds a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. But I think they're going to win tonight. They're at home. And, I watched Trubisky last week against New England. And, the Patriots' defensive game plan was pretty simple. They were going to try to get after him. And they were going to keep everything in front of him. They were going to give him all that short stuff. They were going to make him go down the field because they didn't think he could sustain any drives. They scored one offensive touchdown. And, it worked. Yeah, he picked up first downs, a couple of here and there. But whenever it came down to crunch time, he couldn't deliver the ball.
Right.
And it was patently obvious. And, I think they ended up with 152 yards net passing on the game. And he's not starter material, I think. But like Mel was saying, a good quarterback can make an offensive line that's struggling, or even if it's a good offensive line and facing a great defensive pass rush, look good. Seen Brady do that for years. Not comparing Brady to Trubisky, obviously.
Thank God.
But at the same time,
if you know where you're going to go with the ball and you get rid of the ball quick, you're helping out that offensive line. If you're back there looking and holding on to the ball, they can't sustain those blocks forever. You just can't do it.
And I go back to a playoff game a few years ago. They had Joey Bosa mic'd up for the game, and Brady was throwing the ball under 2 seconds. And he was finding guys open all over the field. And then Bosa pulled up beside him and he said to him, he's like, will you stop throwing the ball so goddamn fast? Excuse my language. And Brady started laughing. He goes, I don't want to get hit by you. And then when Bosa got to the sideline, he was talking to one of his other guys. And he said, how the heck does he get rid of the ball? He didn't say heck, but, how does he get rid of the ball so fast? And that's, you got good pass rushes, but a really good quarterback can make that offensive line shine.
Well, the one thing I know about Pickett is he can throw the long ball. Anyways, that's one of the bigger parts of it.
They have some explosive guys.
Yeah, a great receiver, the guy out of Georgia they picked that they stole in the second round. I mean, he just made a great catch right now. Pickens just made a great one-handed catch from Mitchell Trubisky rolling out on the run.
They got Pickens, they got Chase Claypool, they got Deontay Johnson. They have some dynamic receivers.
Freiermuth, they got an offense. They got some tools. All he's got to be able to do.
And they got Najee Harris.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's just got to be a good distributor, good decision maker, quick with his decisions, and let's go. Let's go.
Well, don't lose sight of the fact that Cleveland has an excellent running game with Kareem Hunt
Oh yeah.
as
They have
well.
one of the best in the league.
And Nick Chubb.
And then
I
on
love-
top of
I love
that
Chubb.
too, Amari Cooper is in Cleveland. So, it's interesting how both teams are certainly in a different place right now, but the quarterback situations to begin with. So I don't know.
Pretty similar.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be nice about it, Jeremy. That's really what I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice.
Well, the difference was Cleveland went to Brissett out of necessity, because of the suspension. But
they went to Mitchell out of necessity. Ben Roethlisberger, he retired. I mean, he didn't look very good last year either.
No. He looked like he was ready to retire last year.
He looked like he should have retired a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Steelers we know are a very loyal organization, the most loyal organization on the planet. So they let Ben go out on his own terms. So I would never hold that against them anyways. The Steelers are just classy. And I still think, regardless of how this game turns out, the Steelers are going to finish over 500 by hook or by crook. I think they're going to do it.
Mike Tomlin has never been under 500. They're going to finish 500. He's a great coach, but are they going to be able to compete? Are they going to be, go in the playoffs? They play in a tough division. We know that.
Well,
getting out of that division is going to be tough.
And the toughest conference, period.
Well, you know what? You're going to tell you. So, I don't know.
I don't see them making the playoffs.
But if they finish over 500 with the group that they have, I think that would be a pretty good accomplishment.
If they finish over 500, Kenny Pickett is going to be playing in about 10 games.
I mean, the team that went to the Super Bowl, plays in their division. I mean, that's a tough division. Cleveland, they're expecting big things. Baltimore, Baltimore is going to be Baltimore. It's a tough division. Once you come out of that division, I mean, if you're able to limp out of that division, that's saying something. And whoever comes out of there will be limping because they're going to take some licks throughout the course of the year.
I've heard that the NFC East is the worst division in football. I've heard that the NFC North right now is the worst division in football. Nope. Hands down, it has to be the AFC South with the Jags at 1-1 leading the division after 2 weeks. That's hilarious. I'm sorry. You can't pick a better script than that.
Well, it's funny. What a great segue, Jeremy. So with that said, we're going to go to our parting comments. All right. And so I'm going to let Jeremy lead off with your parting comments.
Okay. Yeah, that's basically what I was talking about. You've heard that the NFC, everybody said NFC East, they call it the NFC least, but you got two of the only undefeated teams in the league right now. And nobody expected it. The Giants to be undefeated right now. If anybody, they expected Dallas, but with Dak breaking his thumb, who thought Cooper Rush would beat the Bengals? Who thought the Bengals would be 0-2 after being at the Super Bowl? I understand Super Bowl hangover, but this is ridiculous. Burrow last year was sacked 8 times and pressured 13 times after 2 games. He's now been pressured 25 times with 22 QB hits and 13 sacks this year. He may die.
That's a lot in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, no, 13 sacks. All right, well, I like your parting comments, Jeremy. Those are good. I'm glad that somebody brought that up, and obviously your football IQ is extraordinarily high, which is why you're on this show, as well as other ones. So there you go. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Ballesteri. Give me your parting comments.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the bad, and these miracle finishes and all this, but and from a fan perspective, watching some of these games, I mean,
it's
the
rough.
Detroit Lions looked like they were, going to cruise to an easy victory. Then they kind of had you on the edge of your seat there, the same with the Baltimore Ravens and Miami. From a fan perspective, it must drive the coaches absolutely crazy when they see games like this. But, when you're wanting to watch exciting football games, especially early in the season, I think we're getting it. So, I look for more excitement this week. There's always going to be something crazy happen in the first month of the season. And, somebody's going to kick a 65-yard field goal to win the game or.
We almost had that week 1, but he pushed it just a little bit to the left because he had the leg. He just didn't have the aim.
But all right, Steve, continue on. Is that where
No,
you're
that
at?
was it. I mean, this is a crazy time of the season because there's so many unknowns still, and you're watching some guys, progress faster than others, and other guys aren't playing as well. So that's what makes early season football so interesting because you don't have a ton of film on these guys yet, and I look forward to some more.
All right, Mel, give me your parting comments.
Well, I was going to bring this up last week, but then I talked about the Sun Belt Conference, why you want to schedule Appalachian State. And then I'll bring this up real quickly. Then UCLA, it took a last-second field goal for UCLA to beat a team from the Sun Belt Conference last week. But, I'm watching the games. I'm looking at it a little bit differently. We've had a lot of coaching changes over the last year, obviously, like we always do. And I'm looking at these young coaches with the opportunities, and I'm looking at the young offensive coordinators as well with the opportunities, and I'm looking at at their makeup, at the color, and I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed. They talk about a pipeline. Have to develop a pipeline for coaches in order for them to get opportunities. These young guys who I've never heard of before, Mike McDaniels. I don't care. I mean, we know Mike McDaniels wasn't calling the plays for San Francisco. We know who calls the plays for the San Francisco 49ers. The head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. He was not calling the plays for the Los Angeles Rams.
No.
We know who calls the plays for the Los Angeles Rams. But they got head coaching jobs. Eric Bieniemy, because he doesn't quote unquote call the plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, he can't get a job. So I mean, I have a real problem with some of the double standards that I see going on in the NFL, and that really, really bothers me. They're talking about the head coach for the Broncos, him not having any experienced coaches on his staff. A lot of times we have a young head coach. He's going to get a couple older guys. They're going to kind of help him along. He got younger guys, nobody with any experience. That's why he made some of the mistakes that he's made as far as dealing with the play clock and because he doesn't have the experience and he doesn't have anyone around him with that experience. But yet he gets the opportunity to fail. Give a guy an opportunity to fail. We have known when the playing field is level and the rules are published that we've been able to perform just as good, if not better. There's a long time, it was thought that African Americans couldn't play anywhere in the center of the football field. Quarterback, center, middle linebacker, safety. We didn't have the intelligence to play those positions. Well, given the opportunity, we've shown that we can play just as good or better than our white counterpart. I'm just saying, I'm just tired of seeing these retreads over and over and over again. I'm tired of listening to Mike McCarthy. I'm looking at all these young guys who I've never heard of before. Guys who've never even played the game at that level before. Some guys have played the game. Most of them have not played the game. And they're just getting chance after chance. Young guys. These are young guys. We've got African Americans that have been coaching for a long time. The guy at Nebraska who's finally getting his opportunity to be a head coach. Man, you look at where he's been. And he's finally getting an opportunity as an interim head coach, but he's never had the opportunity to run his own program. So I kind of alluded to it back and forth. We were talking about Mike McDaniel first and the problem with him looking young and so forth. But he's got the opportunity. So he has the opportunity to succeed or fail. All I'm asking is, give these other guys an opportunity as well. Give them a chance to succeed or fail. That was the big thing with Bruce Arians. He wanted to make sure one of his guys got an opportunity, and I commend him for that. That's the reason why he hung around. He wanted to make sure that one of his guys got the opportunity. He happened to have African-American defensive coordinator, African-American offensive coordinator. Some of these
African-American QB coach.
Some of these other teams, they don't have that. It's always the good old boy system. And it's time to do away with that. It's time to give these guys their due. It's time to give them the opportunity that they've worked for and they deserve. And give it to them at a young age. Don't give it to them at an old age. Give it to them at a young age.
Right.
I agree.
That's where I was going with that. Let me continue your thought, Mel. What happened to David Culley in Houston was an absolute first-class joke.
Dude, we talked about it. We saw that coming.
Yeah, but you know what? saw it coming or not was a joke anyway. So,
Mhm.
and I just feel bad. I hope he got a lot of money when he left to at least pacify the embarrassment that subsequently took place because he didn't even have a chance to coach Watson.
And they played hard for that guy, man.
They did. It was all I'll say about David Culley. It was injustice. Now, my parting comments are going to go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars game. I know they're playing the Chargers in L.A., but here's the thing. We all know how toxic things were under Urban Meyer last year. But you know what was so refreshing over the weekend is this time they shut out the Indianapolis Colts. I was there in week 17 when Carson Wentz got vilified. Okay. So now let's just paint the picture again. The Jacksonville Jaguars toppled the Colts, but this time you can't blame Carson Wentz for that 24-0 stunking because that's what it was. But I am so glad that the Jaguars hired Doug Peterson and that at least Trevor Lawrence gets a fair opportunity to work for a guy that's been there and done that as a successful quarterback and as a successful head coach. I really am. So I'm glad that hire was made. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Byron Leftwich was in the discussion to get that job, but he did not want to work for Trent Baalke. I think Leftwich ultimately gets hired at some point, as I do believe that Eric Bieniemy will get hired. If not in the NFL, he'll land a college coach. I'll go that Bieniemy gets a head coaching job within 1 or 2 years.
Well, Brian Flores deserves another shot, too.
Well, he does, too. I think he does. And I think that I'm just glad that Mike Tomlin kept him in coaching.
That was a great move by Tomlin.
Class act by the Steelers.
Yep, because I always liked Brian Flores when he was coach with New England, and all the players loved him. The defensive players loved him. They said when he was coaching the defense after he took over for Patricia, was that what you call him?
Yeah, Matt Patricia.
He simplified things. They were able. Donta Hightower even said it. We're playing faster and looser now on the B flow. That's what they called them. Than before, because they had too many reads going on, and guys were overthinking things. And with Flores, he implemented that defense. They held the Rams to 3 points in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully he gets his opportunity, but the reality,
and he got a raw deal in Miami, which we all agreed on a long time ago.
Yeah, he did. But I am so glad that Doug Peterson did surface in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence needs a guy like Doug Peterson that he can look up to. And I'm glad that Doug Peterson, forget about your first year. It's a redshirt year. We don't even care. You're starting all over, and that's it. So Doug Peterson, if he has any kind of good success there, will get a statue in Jacksonville. Mark my word at some point, because I've covered that team a lot, and I know the passionate fan base that you have there. And to me, it's unreal what they have. So I'm going to go over some station IDs again. Subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you can't find us on with the South Florida Tribune, our website, just go to youtube.com, hit South Florida Tribune, and then you can subscribe that way. So with that said, a great show tonight. Nice first act, Jeremy. I didn't expect anything less than you anyways.
You're making me cold, though, looking at you with that hoodie.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So with that said, Jeremy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, and then I'll go around the horn with the rest of the guys.
Number one, you can find me on the South Florida Tribune newspaper page on the internet. Go under Motor City Tribune and look for my name. Number two, I have my own Facebook group for the Lions called the Motor City Kneecap Biters. And then last but not least, on YouTube, you can find me at Kneecap Biting with Smokin' Jeremy B. I'm on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I do my own live streaming commentary during the games on Sunday.
Also, he is a regular on Fire Up Michigan as well.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. I see a lot to remember now.
Life is tough when you continue to add one gig after another, so be it. But he's a regular on Fire Up Michigan, and brought him on Monday. He was great. And, of course, he's going to be contributing on Inside the Pigskin as well, whether it's 4 or 5 people, whatever. I know the only 3 people that are coming on every week, myself, Mel, and Steve, of course, Jennifer as well, but Jeremy's certainly in the rotation when he's called upon. With that said, Melfar, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr., Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the other one, Twitter, and find out what we have going on down here in Atlanta up in Detroit for the youth at melfar.org.
Nice.
Steve?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, just like it says here, at SteveB7SFG. I write for PatsFans.com. I also do a podcast with them called Patriots 4th and 2. I do another podcast with a couple of folks called One Patriot Place, which Scott has been a guest on. And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Steve Balistreri. I am also a national security columnist for 1945.com.
And of course, Steve's always been a regular on our shows as well. He's been on the Sports Exchange, Inside the Pigskin, or any other broadcast that relates to. It doesn't matter. Steve is one of my MVPs. I can move him all over the network, and he does a dynamite job every single time. So, with that said, I'm just privileged to have all you guys on tonight. I think you guys did a really wonderful job. It's always nice to have a new person come in to blend with everybody else, and obviously everybody gets used to one another, and then I like to bring people back so we continue building the relationship as well as the brand. So meanwhile, that concludes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. On behalf of Melfar Jr., Smoking Jeremy B., and Steve Balistreri, my name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next week on Inside the Pigskin. Have yourself a great week. Enjoy the football. And we'll see if any of us are eating crow. If they are, won't be the first, and it won't be the last. So take care. In the eyes of Tony Kornheiser of PTI, we'll see if we can do better the next time. Good night, everybody, and have yourself a great week. And Jennifer, we miss you, and we're looking forward to having you back as well. Take care. And once again, have a great week, everybody.